I think of it as he's just putting out a 911 call to the American people. Understand what could happen if Donald Trump were back in the White House. And this time, we must take very seriously those folks who knew him best and who were career people are not going to be there to hold him back. At least before, there were folks who we know what he would say, but they would restrain him. Imagine now Donald Trump in the Oval Office, in the Situation Room. He who has openly admired dictators, said he would be a dictator on day one. The former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff has said he is a fascist to the core. So I think that when the American people reflect, especially those who are undecided, on who you should listen to, don't take my word for it. In fact, go online and listen to John Kelly, his voice, talking about what he thinks of Donald Trump 2 weeks before the election.
We're back with Tim, General McCaffrey, Cornell, and Molly. Molly, before I turn this over to you, I have to say, the Beyonce story is huge, right, but the media has to show that it can walk and chew gum, and it has to cover what is happening every day. I actually think all of the performers, we played President Obama with Eminem, Bruce Springsteen is about to hit the trail. It's massive and it's huge, but there is a tendency in the press in the time of Trump, I've done this myself, of flattening all the coverage, right? It's all the same, bleep whole countries, but because there's so much. The Kelly tapes deserve some extra attention.
Yeah, and what I think Harris did very smartly was she said, go and listen to the tapes. Because when you go to the New York Times website and you listen to those tapes and you think about this is a person who is not political, who has, just been of service to his country, who would not be doing this unless he truly believed that he had a duty to his country to come out and say these things. And what I thought was Harris did, which was very smart during that whole town hall, was that she kept saying, this is not my opinion, right? This is not about me. This is John Kelly. This is a guy who was his longest-serving chief of staff. And I think that was really important. And this kind of thing does actually permeate the news. And it makes it clear that this is not normal, that these kind of things do not happen. And you're seeing more and more Republicans. I mean, Liz Cheney and Harris don't have any, this is not a policy decision. This is a democracy decision.
General McCaffrey, what does it mean to either a person serving right now or a parent with someone serving to understand and really internalize what Kelly is saying, that the commander-in-chief, should Trump prevail, is a fascist?
Well, look, first of all, I think the armed forces will and will remain an apolitical organization. At the highest ranks, at the four-star serving ranks, people do not express in private nor public a political preference. They're going to try and remain steadfast and stay out of the election process. However, I think from a national security perspective, you watched all the former secretaries of defense denounce Trump and say he's unstable. He's incoherent. He's ignorant. He's volatile. A lot of these unprincipled Republican nationally known leaders are enabling a guy who will come into office that they'll have to listen to, that they'll have to take into account his incredible misjudgments. We're likely to come out of NATO. We're likely to turn the Ukrainians over to the Russian criminal invasion. It's hard to understand what Trump will do or not do. So I think the biggest thing in my mind is not the political tenor inside the armed forces, nor the Trump voters. It's the political leaders on the right who are enabling this guy to take office, which will be, I think, a disaster for national security and the country.
Cornell, yesterday, Matt Dowd, who has a long career as a pollster, said he thought this is the kind of story that could be determinative with these teeny margins in a handful of states. What do you think of that?
I do think this, along with it helps her close, Nicole. I do. I think she wants to close and talk about, turning a page and moving forward and getting beyond the chaos and the division. I think this is a front and center proof point, right? That the generals are warning that he's a fascist is a front and center proof point of the dangers and the need for us to turn the page and move forward and move in a dramatically different direction. I think this is very, I hate to put it in terms of helpful, but I think this is absolutely a proof point to the close that she wants to make coming up here really soon.
Tim, let me come back to you, because this is where I stuck my foot in the mouth about the Beyonce news. Let me come back to you on the Bulwark has been so strong and such a North Star in terms of doing the opposite of what I articulated, which was flattening the news cycle. Say more about how you communicate how unprecedented this really is. And the only thing I would add is, if you listen to the actual audios the Vice President said, because I think it becomes derivative. Like, some people will see the stories, some people, the Today Show has less time, so you hear about it. But if you hear it, you hear his agony. And if you listen to the tapes, you hear what Chairman McCaffrey just articulated, that it is an apolitical institution, always has been, always will be, including in John Kelly's eyes. But what he's saying is there are elections that are about fitness and character, not policy, and this is one of them.
Yeah, well, for starters, I have the Beyonce B-Day 2007 tour T-shirt, and it's fine. No offense intended. I think Beyonce would understand. Yeah, as for keeping it's the old political line, the old Carvel line, keeping the main thing, That's just it. Like, it's hard, right? It is challenging. You deal with this on this show. We deal with it on the Bulwark, and it's hard, right, to not get beaten down and to not think, even us who are kind of at the tip of the spear as never Trumpers, of being people who recognize the threat. Like, I do it sometimes. Like, I'll see the Kelly news and immediately go into pundit mode or into like, ooh, what's the impact on the polls mode? And you have to be conscious of saying, no, actually, this is unprecedented. People need to hear about it in a way that resonates with them, that meets them where they are, and that isn't like either high-minded stuff or poll stuff or horse race stuff. You got to say, no, look, this hasn't happened before. I mean, there's a huge group of voters who are coming in, 18 to 22. They don't really remember the Mitt Romney election. If you're 19 right now, that was 12 years ago. You were 7, And so you got to speak to them. Like, this is actually not how it is normal. Like, usually you don't have a new vice presidential candidate because the old vice presidential candidate had a mob sicked after them. Usually 2 weeks from election, you don't have a 4-star general and former chief of staff who would do anything to not be in the news coming forward because he feels the danger and the threat is so great to try to do that 911 call like Beyonce, like Vice President Harris called it.
I feel like the phones are going to ring
yesterday.
and they're going to say,
"You got Beyonce in my mind. That's your fault. That's your fault." Like Kamala Harris said last night, and so I just think it's a challenge. Like, it's a challenge for people in their everyday lives and for the media, but like, we have to be conscious of it. In the hopes that it will continue to break through with more and more people.